What's up, guys? I'm Ryan Turk.
Chris Forsberg here.
And we're back for Season 4 of Drift Response.
We've received hundreds of questions, comments, and Drift Idiot moments.
We won't be able to get to them all, so here are a few we did get to. Alright, first question is to me and Chris from Joshua Osborne. I see you guys are using some quality tools such as Snap-on. I was wondering if you guys have any recommendations for some of the guys starting out a project like this. With what kind of tool set or brands we should buy. I know Harbor Freight is the cheapest value, but they're told break constantly. Hope you're back with some input. Josh, obviously, spending the money on Snap-on. Snap-on's known as one of the best tool brands in the marketplace, and they don't disappoint. They make very specialty tools for certain things, and just their overall quality is top notch. Now, you don't need to do that to get the job done. Harbor Freight does have some good tools that you can use. It's just there's little things that will go bad, but they are cheap value. So I would say I would go middle of the road, maybe get a Craftsman set up. You can get it at Sears or any Walmart or any of those kind of stores. And don't break the piggy bank at first. Their tools are quality enough to get pretty much any job done unless you really have a difficult situation where you're going to need some specialty tools such as what Snap-on and other tool companies can supply. So I hope that helps. Don't break the piggy bank to go all in at once. Just get some cost-effective tools to get the job done for you.
From Charlie Strassel, he asks, what is the first thing that should be upgraded into an S chassis to start a drift build? Well, I get asked this question a lot, and I always say the same three things, and that is diff, seat, and coilovers. Diff is the most important, whether you get a welded diff or an aftermarket mechanical diff or even a VLSD from a later model. And the idea is that you want both of those rear wheels to be locked up and spinning together, or otherwise you're not going to have very good control of your car when you're drifting. So first up, differential no matter what. Second, I always say to get a bucket seat. Now that's a little overlooked, and a lot of people go straight to exhaust and power adders and maybe even like a hydraulic handbrake. And now those are all things that will help you down the road, but for best bang for the buck, you need a diff to lock up those rear wheels, and then since you got a car that's going to need a lot more modification to be more drift capable, a seat will hold you into the car very well and very controlled, and that is what's going to give you the control to be able to drive your car throughout the course. You're not going to be banging into the door panel or the console and bruising up your knees, and you're actually going to be able to feel the car and be able to control the wheel instead of hang on to it. Thirdly, I say get a set of coilovers because that's going to lower your center of gravity, it's going to stiffen up the chassis, take a lot of that slop out, and make it a lot easier to control through the corners. And you can always go cheap and just get something that's going to get you out there and on the track and a little better than a blown out stock suspension, but it's one of those mods that's going to last you a long time. So I always say at least spring for a mid-level package. Try not to get the cheapest, absolute worst setup right off the shelf. Get something that's a little nicer that's going to last you a lot longer than just a few days at the track.
Next question is from Coop on the Second. This question was, if you could take any unorthodox car and make it a drift machine, what would you choose? I don't know how unorthodox it would be, but I think it would be super cool to take one of the WRC rally cars, make it rear-wheel drive, which I'm sure you could do very easily, and then blast around on those things. Obviously put a steering kit in the front end and just have at it. Those cars I think are some of the coolest on the planet, and would be super rad to have that kind of quality build, $1 million car build kind of scenario as a drift car. So that'd be my bet.
All right, next question we got from Jacob Levicki. He asks, when you are doing a swap, how do you deal with an electric system and gearbox? I did 2 swaps myself, and those 2 things were the worst for me. Yeah, those are definitely 2 things that are going to make a swap difficult, which is why on our setup we went with the SR20 because it is available in that chassis and it does all bolt up. So it makes doing that swap at home very easy. However, not too many people want to go with something that's just a straight bolt-in. They're doing something custom, maybe a V8, maybe a straight 6. And depending on the chassis you have, there are a lot of companies that make bolt-in kits for those engines. So if you're new to this, I recommend sticking with something that's already pre-made so you're not getting too far into the build and spending a lot of time just getting your car to run instead of spending time out at the track. And with that, there's a lot of things you can learn online. There's a lot of people that post up how to do the wiring. There's also kits that you can buy that have pre-made engine harnesses for specific chassis. You can check some of those out online. And there's also a couple guys, depending on the engine that you have, that make adapter plates to put on different transmissions on the back of these engines. One of the most popular ones is the 350Z transmission, which is very strong and widely available. You can put them on the back of SR20s, KAs, V8s even. I think I've seen even adapters for super engines. And so, the best thing to do is try and find the parts that you need before you start your build, so you're not working backwards and wasting a lot of time just trying to get the thing to run.
Next question is from TCMJ Media. Hey Ryan Turk, what would you say is the #1 essential modification to do when swapping a 1JZ into a chassis? Thanks. I'd say the #1 modification you need to do for the JZs is just make sure that you got your cooling system done properly. And when you're swapping a JZ engine into a 4-cylinder chassis, there's not a lot of room in the front because of the extra 2 cylinders being an inline 6. So it makes it really difficult to get a good big radiator in there with a proper fan to be able to cool the thing. So that's something I've struggled with in the past. Things are pretty sorted now. We got Nameless Performance on the job with Mishimoto to really keep our pro cars super cool, and I'm doing the same thing to the Street FRS. We also have Mishimoto in a GT4586 car, so that thing is done properly. And even my S13, I just installed a Mishimoto radiator with a proper set of Mishimoto 12-inch race fans that have done a phenomenal job. So for JZs, they can handle a lot of heat, but you don't want to do that because then you're just gonna it's gonna lessen its life expectancy, and you might run into some issues. So I'd say just make sure you measure out and get a proper cooling system in your JZ.
All right, next question is from Georgi Leiliushvili. I believe I got that close. So, at what point of upgrades would you recommend forging the pistons, crankshaft, and rods? I've heard that pistons melt on SRs at around 400 horsepower. Now, the biggest thing about engines and their reliability is what I always say, and that is a good tune and a good ECU to control it. And so for our setup, we went with a Apex Power FC. This is actually the same ECU I run on my Datsun, same ECU I run on my Nissan 240SX with the KA, and they're both professionally tuned, and that makes a huge difference on what kind of abuse your engine can take. So yeah, there's a couple guys that have melted pistons even at 250 horsepower, because they don't have the right air-fuel mixture, their engine runs a little hot, and they burn those pistons down. And you can also have a mistake like what happened to Drift Idiot, where his vacuum line fell off, overboosted, melted a piston. So those are all very common things that can happen. But if you have a good engine and a good tune, and obviously a good tuner to control that ECU, then you can actually get upwards of 500 horsepower, about 400 wheel safely on an SR20. I've done it before, many people have done it, and some guys that actually push it a little further than that. I wouldn't recommend it. So if you're going to be going over 400 wheel horsepower, I would definitely recommend getting forged internals.
All right, next question is from Steve Brown. Are you running stock rear knuckles on this? If so, what are you doing with the rubber bushings in there? As for my idiot moment, get clutch and flywheel on SR20, only to remember your dust shield is still under the car. That happens to the best of us. You just forget certain things sometimes, and then you have to do the job all over again. And that's a real idiot moment that should definitely teach you to never do that again in the future. Now, to get to your question, we are running stock knuckles on the rear of Drift Idiot's S14. The bushings, I think they were stock. I don't know. Chris did the work on that thing, so I can't remember. But you can do upgraded bushings. I think Energy Suspension supplies them for relatively cheap costs, so check it out if that's what you need.
From Thomas E, who says, all of those parts gave me a warm fuzzy feeling. Can you do a brief overview of what you want to do to that gorgeous Datsun? So that Datsun's actually not going to be some crazy race car build for me. It's not going to turn into this Datsun and just be like a half street, half track car. It's actually being built for my wife, which is why it's going to be just a nice, fun, easy street car. It's going to have some airbags, some nice suspension, new brakes, new interior to make it a lot more enjoyable, a lot safer, and more drivable. So the biggest reason why I wanted to do airbags is because I want to have the thing sitting nice and low, but still be able to raise up and drive around and be just very easy to get around as a daily driver. The new seats and seat belts and everything else to make it a little more safe, getting that old, outdated half-back seats and lap belts out of that thing. And the suspension from Techno Toy Tuning is very much on point, getting rid of all the sloppy stock bushings and putting in adjustable control arms, adjustable coilovers, and a whole new braking system from Willwood Brakes. So that thing's gonna be sweet. I'm looking forward to getting that thing out on the street and having a good time with it.
All right, last and final question from Rolo Rods. Quick question for y'all out there. I have a 1999 Camaro RS with no engine. I'm thinking about putting an LS1, SR20, 1JZ VVTi. Which one do y'all think would be good? And if you prefer a different motor, let me know. I'd say I'd stick with the LS. You know, that's an engine that probably came in that car, and it'd be a lot easier to swap it in. There's plenty of room. Everything is going to fit. There's more factory bolt holes to use. You don't have to custom do engine mounts, transmission mounts, and everything else. So I'd say stick with the LS1 for that car, and if you get sick of it, do something else. Alright guys, that is it for this Drift Response Season 4.
Thank you very much for sending those in, and please keep watching and commenting. We love hearing from you guys.
The new episode is coming out very soon, so stay tuned to Network A, and we'll see you then.